Hey you guys, this is Julian, and if you look down at the desk in front of me, what I have here, you'll see that it is once more stop motion time here in the studio. We have covered various stop motion animation related topics in the past, like action figures and facial sculpting and animation, facial animation. One thing I have never done so far is actually casting parts of silicone with armatures inside. I figured hands might be a good point to start, and so I sculpted this, which is a polymer clay. You sculpt it, you throw it into your household kitchen oven and it hardens. And then I put a clear coating on it to protect it from moisture. Why? Because I then made this two-part mold from plaster. What I did is I embedded this hand in clay and then I poured plaster, liquid plaster on top. I let it dry. Then I flipped it around, took the clay off, put some clear coating on the plaster to protect it from sticking, because I then poured liquid plaster on the other side, and when it was dry I had these two parts of a mold that forms a hand and that you can then pour through this hole of the arm, so to speak. Pour another material in there, wrap some rubber bands around it, let it dry, and then you have a second hand. I made a test with this silicone. This is what I got out of it. It doesn't have an armature inside, obviously. And what I used was this like hardware store sanitary silicone that you put in one of these like squeezing guns. Funny enough, it was available in this really skin tone beige, Scandinavian skin tone. I just squeezed it a little bit on both sides and then closed the mold, let it dry. It actually needs quite long to dry. But yeah, I got this out of it with a lot of flashing, which of course you can just cut off, but also a couple of holes, like where it didn't get, the silicone didn't get into every little corner of the mold. But yeah, otherwise I'm quite happy with it. It's quite detailed. It shows all these veins and the fingernails and the skin wrinkles at the joints. I now want to do my first casting with a wire armature inside of it, and that's why I have a lot of different wires here. I have like the standard aluminum wire, which is a little bit thicker and it bends really softly. For the fingertips, I feel like it might be a little bit too big even. And also I just gave it an endurance test and it showed that this stuff is actually so soft. Yeah, and off it is. I don't think you could do more than a couple minutes, very few minutes of finished animation with this wire before it breaks, and then, you know, it's casted silicone. You can't go inside and you can't repair it. Then I also used before some very thin and used like double fold or quadruple fold and twisted them and made them into thicker wires, which I think is quite durable. But I also have some of this wire, and I think it's steel wire. I'm not sure, but it's quite rigid, but not too rigid. And if I look at this silicone, like how stiff it is, I think this is actually the right thickness, the right rigidness, the right flexibility. So what I'm gonna do now is twist like a little hand out of these wires and try to make it fit as perfectly as possible inside of the mold. I have pliers, I have wire. Let's begin. So here I am again, and we do have an armature and it fits quite well inside. Let's open up that old thing and hope it's still, oh yeah, it's still soft. Put on some gloves. So the goal here really is to get the best amount, the most perfect amount of silicone into the mold. Wait, there it is. One silicone sausage. Squeeze in a little bit, very little bit. The important moment. And from like the depth in this direction, we want it to be as plain as possible. Also, I didn't use any mold release. On the other hand, I remember this silicone to get out of the mold fairly easily. Ah no, not this side because it's coated. So let me grab some Vaseline and at least grease up this side. I can already tell by when I put the silicone in that it doesn't directly stay in there. It kind of slides over the surface, over the Vaseline. About closing the mold, I've seen a lot of people using rubber bands. I'm just gonna use duct tape and then just closing it. I'm gonna write today that I closed the mold on it, so I have some kind of reference. I can check like what's coming out here, how hard this is getting, but my experience is that inside of the mold it needs a lot longer to cure. So I'm just gonna put that away and I'm gonna go for a run because there's nothing else to do now anyway, and I see you in a second. So it's another day, it's another Julian in a different sweatshirt, and I have my mold here that I let dry for 3 whole days. And this is the moment of truth. Uh-oh, I can already tell it's not. There are these little bits here of silicone that are still quite soft. No, I'm gonna leave it closed a little longer. A third day and a third version of myself. I waited another 2 days to be completely safe, and now I'm quite confident that nothing is gonna pour out of the mold, but the only way to be sure is to open up this bad boy. There we go. Looking good. Looking pretty good. So this is what we have. As I feared, there's a lot of flashing, but that's okay. Ooh, it bends. Oh, this is so cool. Okay, time to clean up. So that's it for this week. There's for sure a lot that you can still improve. As you saw, there are some parts where there's metal outside. It seems like my armature didn't go all the way into the fingertips, which I don't know why it did that. I thought it was long enough. Maybe the pressure of the silicone when I pressed the two sides together was kind of forcing the wires out of this hole in a way. Yeah, of course it would be nice if the armature was stiff and only could move at the actual joints. Something I didn't do because the fingers are so thin, but at least maybe I can put some like hot glue or Bondo or plumber's putty or something like this to the end of the wires, so at least the ends don't stick out of the silicone. As always, thanks so much for watching. Comment on your experience with casting and mold making and stop motion hands. If you like, subscribe, and if you're following me on Instagram, the Gundam episode is coming. The Gundam build and animation episode that I'm talking about all the time on Instagram, it is coming. It's almost complete, and I think in the next week you can see it here. Have a great day, build something awesome. Goodbye, see you next time.